In the next 30 minutes, we're going to go over contour visualization basics. And Jaime is going to take us through it. Jaime is a senior user interface developer at Foreo. He's worked on several key projects at Foreo, and he is also the key developer, the initiator of Foreo Contour. So it's great to get it from the person who's actually developed it, learn about how to actually build out these visualizations. So Jaime, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, hello everyone, and thanks Michael for that kind introduction. So today we're going to talk about how to build a basic visualization using Foreo Contour. And we're going to explore what's Foreo Contour, and we're going to understand a little bit more about Contour. So this is what we're going to be talking about over the next 30 minutes. What is Foreo Contour? Quick tour of Contour and the Contour resources that we have out there and we have prepared for everybody. And then we're going to go dive into the code and create a basic chart, a basic Foreo Contour visualization. And for that part, we're going to be using the JavaScript and HTML. And so some basic understanding of of JavaScript and HTML is helpful to understand that part.
Sounds good.
So really quickly, what's Foreo Contour? Foreo Contour is a JavaScript library to create interactive charts and visualizations, and it's based on a very popular library for charts, which is called d3.js. The idea behind Foreo Contour is to be able to create visualizations very easily and to customize them and extend them, because usually like the stock visualizations or the stock charts that come with a lot of packages, they're nice for the first version, but then once you want to create something a little bit more customized and a little bit more special, you have to do a lot of hoop jumping to get the library to work the way you want. So one of our goals was to be able to extend those visualizations really, really easily.
So that makes sense. I mean, it's interesting. You know, one of the things that people may be wondering about, and that we've actually questioned ourselves when we were working on Foreo Contour, was like, why do we need another data visualization library? Like, there's lots of JavaScript libraries that are already out there that do data visualization and things. But this idea is basically around what you're just saying, is that it's for customizing and extending it, and it does some things that some of these other libraries don't, or maybe don't do as well, or something.
That is a very, very good question, and a question that we should ask ourselves every time we start a new project.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So why did we create Foreo Contour? And basically, what we've been using a lot of libraries over the past years, and we've been exploring different visualization libraries, and we found that they had like two main problems. One is some of them were hard to customize and to extend. So sometimes the developer just thinks of ways to customize it and provides the customization hooks, or to provide the customization configurations for those specific things. But then once you go outside of those options, then it's really hard to modify or customize the chart. So we wanted to have more control over that. And it is very hard to reuse and share visualizations. So I create this little visualization or this little component, and I want to use that component in another project. I have to copy paste code all over the place, and that's not really the good way to do it, right? So that's on one part. And then on the other part, if you really want to have kind of like all the control by yourself, then you can go to something like d3.js, which is a low-level library that is very, very powerful, but it has a steep learning curve, right? So people need to understand it and to learn it to be able to use it to its full extent. So we wanted to create something that had that level of control, but still was easy to use and easy to customize and easy to reuse.
And so that's partly why Contour is based on D3, right? So D3.js, it's built by, what's the guy's name? Mike
Bostock.
Mike Bostock, right? And he's the guy at New York Times, who does the New York Times data visualizations, right? And that's a pretty popular library, that D3 library. And what we've done is extended it so that you can do things easily with it, essentially. But then you can also, is that right, drop down into the D3 library if you want to do more sophisticated things. So you have these sort of different levels.
Exactly. So you have like the very, very kind of high level abstraction where you're just using the library and calling, oh, give me a line chart or give me a pie chart.
Yeah.
And then you can dive into like the real nitty-gritty parts of D3 and say, like, give me a canvas or give me a layer where I can just play and put whatever I want with D3 or with any other library for that matter. But, yeah, so it has a full range of possibilities, and that's something kind of key to Contour.
Nice. That makes sense. And besides D3, are there any other libraries that are required to work with Contour?
Yes. We also depend upon another library called Lodash, which is an extension of another library, I guess, another very popular JavaScript library, which is called Underscore, and provides basically a lot of functionality and a lot of tools to work with data and to work with collections and arrays and like the different objects and strings and stuff like that. So we take advantage of the existence of that library to not rebuild and reinvent the wheel every time, right?
Makes sense. So it's a combination of D3.js, Lodash.js, and then I guess Contour.js that you put these things together, and then you can do these data visualizations.
That is correct.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. So a quick tour about Fourier Contour. What do we have and what's available? We have a whole website dedicated to Contour that has a bunch of examples. It has documentation. It has the source code. We believe the documentation is a big part of it, of any library. To be able to use it and to be able to start using the library, you need some good documentation. So we put together this website that has like ways to download Contour, and you can obviously download just the compressed version of Contour, or you can access the GitHub repository for Contour. Contour is an open source library. It's a free open source library, so you can have access to the code, and you can have access to all the little pieces of Contour. Right?
That makes sense. And I'm sorry, just to because I know that's come up before too. So the Contour library is free. It's an open source library. It's also a free and open source library, FOSS or whatever, right?
That is correct.
And we have it available for download here, so you can use it. And it's licensed under Apache v2, which allows for it to be used for commercial purposes.
That is correct, yeah. So we want people to be able to use the Contour library for anything, any project that they need to do.
Right.
So not just for other open source libraries.
Terrific.
Okay. So we also have a gallery with a bunch of examples on different charts, on different types of charts. These are some of the charts that Fourier Contour supports out of the box. And if you click on line chart, for example, then you get a bunch of different styles of line charts and styles of charts, and you can click on one of the charts and then you have access to the source code that created that chart, so you can like see the actual source code and understand what it's doing, and the CSS or the style sheet that created that chart. And furthermore, you can actually play with these examples in JS Fiddle. JS Fiddle is a popular JavaScript online execution engine, I guess. And if you click on Edit on JS Fiddle, you go to the JS Fiddle with this chart already loaded, and then you can start modifying things in here, right? You can do different. This is just like JavaScript, so you can do, for example, if I want to change the color of the markers, for example, to be red, to have a red stroke rather than white. Then I just change something in here in the code, and I can run it, and I get the result over there.
And that's neat. So within JS Fiddle, then you get to the example. So you can look through the examples that are there, and you can look at the code that generated them, and then change that so that you can see like how does this code work and learn more about it. And it's divided up into four parts if you count the output, right? So you've got HTML in the upper left, and then JavaScript, and then CSS. And it looks like from what you were just doing, you've got you changed that stroke for the outline of the markers to red, and so I guess the CSS is defining the sort of the look. Is that right? And then the JavaScript is for something else.
That is correct. So in general, what we try to do is use the JavaScript the JavaScript side for the configuration and for the data of the chart, and then for the look and feel, we try as much as possible to use a style sheet, which is specifically designed to create look and feels. So we try to use the correct tools for the correct thing. So in this case, for example, the colors of the different elements, the font sizes, the fonts, and all those things are defined in a CSS and are defined through a style sheet. And you can control all those and override those through a style sheet.
Nice. And I can see there you have like bar temps, and this is a temperature one, and you have 50, 50, or 52, 53, etc. If I change that number, will it update on the site? Like if I change 53 to 90 or something?
Yeah. So let's say this is actually my data, right? Data
Yeah.
that I'm plotting. So if I change something in my data and then just rerun the chart, now that second point is 90.
Okay, great. So that's a nice way to kind of experiment with this, and for me anyway, that would be a nice way to kind of learn the library.
Exactly. So it's a really easy way to like just get you started with some example and then play with it and say, oh, I wanna change the grid lines to be different or something.
Nice.
Okay. Or
Okay.
I want to experiment with just putting vertical grid lines, and I just change that property, and I can see like right away what.
Oh yeah.
The effect of.
Lost the horizontal ones this time.
Exactly.
Okay. What did you have in there before? Was it both?
Both.
Okay.
So if I want both, I can go both.
Nice.
Okay. So and you can do that with every example that is available in the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And also one very important thing is in the documentation, we have a pretty extensive documentation, and we've been working on that very hard for the past few weeks. And obviously it's going to be extended like all the time. But for all the configuration options and the different things that you're able to do with Contour, mm-hmm. we also provide a little example, and you can try that example on JS Fiddle. So you click on one of those links, try it, and you go to JS Fiddle with that example loaded up.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you clicked on the animate example here, and so this is animate for tooltip, is that right?
Exactly. So this was the animate for tooltip, and this controls the animation of how like the fade-in animation of the tooltip, for example.
Yeah.
So if I say false in here and rerun the sample, now the tooltip doesn't animate; it just shows up.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
nice.
So those types of things are the things that you are able to do with this kind of construct.
That makes so. In addition to sort of seeing the big charts, you can also look through the documentation and see specific little items. And in this case, for animate for the tooltip.
For the tooltip.
Okay, nice.
Okay. We also have a section on examples, which are kind of bigger, more integrated visualizations that we've been creating. Uh-huh. So you can play with them. This is a little visualization about like how much money would you have if you had invested $100,000 in a different stock at some year in the past. So if I had invested in Apple, for example, in 1984, now I would have $18 million.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And one of these things here too, we're showing sort of the power of the library in terms of the ability to process lots of points too, right? Like there's a lot of data here that we're showing for the value of the investment over time.
That is correct. Yeah. For example, in this example, we're loading a data set of about 11,000 days of trading. So there's 11,000 rows in this data set, and we're actually rendering like almost in real time, and we just like do a little waiting for like usability purposes, but we can actually render it in almost real time, right? These are these data set for the Nasdaq, for example, is based on every trading day since 1971.
Nice. I saw there like Monday, December 12th or whatever.
Yeah.
It's giving you one day.
Exactly. So that's like
out of the 11,000 points or whatever. That's pretty neat.
Exactly. Okay. So that kind of shows the power of being able to work with a lot of data, right? Which is something that we've been working on very hard to like optimize.
And this one too, like these examples have the source or something, isn't that right? There's some way to get to the source for these?
That is correct. So you play with example, and then there's another little link in here with example is discover how it was done, and then we explain how all this is done, basically what we did to create this visualization. For example, the data sets in here, we can click on the data set, and
there's the 11,000 points.
11,000 points.
Actually, it's more than that because it's also by the different stock
Right. So it's 11,000 rows.
Yeah.
But like each row has a value for Apple, Microsoft, and all the ones that I.
Yeah. What's the last one?
This one is G. Oh no, no. It's so Facebook is the last one, but it's shifted.
Right, this tab delimited. That makes sense. Okay, got it.
And then we can explain a little bit the basics of how we created this, and you have access to the actual source code, to the files that we have for this visualization. So this is the source code, the exact source code that is executed when you're running that visualization.
Oh, neat.
Okay, so you can explore how this is created and how to create the charts and what things we did to create the charts and different styles.
Nice.
Okay, so that's kind of a quick tour of what's available. In terms of support, you can ask questions. If you have questions regarding, how do I do this or how do I do that, you can go to Stack Overflow, and Stack Overflow is a very popular programming site, and you can go to Stack Overflow and ask questions there under just adding the tag for your contour, and then we monitor that constantly, and then hopefully the more we use it, more and more people will start to answer questions
and that's a pretty popular. It's becoming a more popular solution to this. So instead of us maintaining our own forum for questions and answers regarding Contour, we're relying on Stack Overflow for that.
That is
and
correct,
if you just put in this tag Foreo -contour, like it's listed there, then that's something that we'll pick up on, and then we'll respond in the same way as if it were our own forum.
That is correct. That's right. Yeah. But we also get the advantage of other people being able to maybe contribute to the answers or understand more of the answers, or like it gets a knowledge base basically.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, so let's dive into the next part, which is the coding part, and I'm gonna just close this task, clean up this a little bit, and I'm gonna start off with the coding part, and I'm just going to go through like creating the very basic Foreo chart. So imagine that I start with this empty HTML. There's nothing in here. It's just the different sections of the HTML, and the first thing that I'm going to do is add those scripts that I need to work with Foreo Contour.
Okay.
We were talking about, and I'm just going to kind of copy paste here instead of you having to watch me type.
Okay.
So I included 3 scripts and a style sheet.
Okay.
So the first line is the style sheet. We were saying that everything, the look and feel of the charts are controlled to styles, and we provide a lot of the styles already set. So we provide all the styling, default styling for all the elements, and that's included in this file, the contour CSS file.
That's like the color of the lines or the charts and maybe the fonts and stuff like that. Is that right?
Exactly. That is exactly correct. Like all the colors, all the font types, all the sizes of the fonts, the colors of the palettes, and different things.
Okay.
Then we include D3. As we were saying, we need D3 to run. We're building on top of D3, and the other library we were talking about, Lodash. And finally, we include Contour. And Contour has, in this case, has everything that I need to create a basic chart.
And the .min is like minified or something like that?
Yeah, the .min is just a convention to when we create a file that is minified and compressed and has like the smallest possible footprint in terms of transfer size, then we call it min, or minified.
Okay.
Minified version. Okay. So the first thing that I need to do is have a container for my chart. I'm going to put the chart somewhere, and I'm going to create a div to have my chart, or to contain my chart. Okay. And then I'm going to tell Contour, hey, put my chart, or the chart that I'm going to create, in that div, in that little container. Okay. So the chart is going to end up inside here.
Okay. So we've got div class chart, and the name of this div is, well, it's a class. The class name is chart.
Exactly. So, and I just added a class to a chart so I can style it a little bit, and I can control, I can reference it, and I can select it, and I can do different things. So, for example, let's just like do some very little styling, and I'm going to say this has some width, and then I'm going to put a border so we can see what's going on. And this is just a debug border for now.
Okay.
So if I run this, I'm going to get basically a line, which is that div, that container, but it's collapsed because it has no content. So,
got it. So it's just a 1 pixel line because there's nothing in it yet.
Exactly. So the top border and the bottom border are collapsed.
Right.
so there's, because it's empty, it's totally empty. Okay. So but that's going to help me visualize what's going on.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to do is create my Fourier contour chart. And to do that, I'm just going to do new contour. Contour is the main object for contour for the library. So you always start creating this contour object, and you can think of the contour object as the canvas, or as the base container for all the visualizations. We have this concept in contour where each visualization is actually you can decompose visualizations into different elements, and each element you layer on top of each other. So you're kind of adding stuff to your visualization or appending stuff to your visualization.
Okay.
Okay, and this contour is basically the container for all that. And I'm going to tell it where is that going to live in my HTML. And to do that, I'm just going to reference the EL, which is the element. And I'm going to tell the element where you should render yourself in is chart. And this is a selector for the class chart, or whatever the div the class chart is.
Okay. Now, I'm not, a class can apply to multiple divs, right? So you could have like 5 things that are named chart here, because it's not an ID for the div.
That is correct.
So that would style everything that was named chart, everything that was in the chart class, essentially, if we're in multiple divs.
Right, but it would only add one instance of the chart. The styles will apply to all the classes or all the divs that have class chart.
Yeah.
But the contour will only be there will only be one chart.
Okay.
Okay. I use the classes just to be able to kind of have a generic style for something, and then use that same class as a selector.
It's part of the reusability.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to tell it to render. So that's the basic contour chart. And if I go and refresh my page, now I have a chart.
Interesting.
It's an empty chart, but but it's a chart.
The red rectangle, we're on our way.
Exactly.
But what's interesting to me is that now it has depth as well. Like before we set the width to 600, but we never specified the height, and it's giving us a height anyway here.
That is correct. So Contour automatically figures out, or tries to figure out, a nice looking aspect ratio for your charts. If you don't, you have control of the width and the height of your charts. You can specify the height too. But if you don't, you can just tell them, oh, this is the width for my chart, and figure out a nice aspect ratio. And this is based on the golden ratio, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. It does sort of look like normal chart dimensions to me. So,
right, exactly.
but like you say, if I wanted to make it square or something, I could do so just by changing the height.
That is correct. So if I were to specify here height, then I can specify 100 pixels, and I can make something very, very thin, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's my chart.
Got it. Okay.
So now I'm going to start adding stuff to my chart. So the first thing that I want to do is, for a lot of the chart types, we want to have an x-axis and a y-axis.
Yeah.
So we want to have a coordinate system. And to do that, I'm going to add one component to the chart, which is a Cartesian frame. And I just add it like that.
Okay, so that's to do x and y axes.
Right.
And as I understand it, then that's most of the things you're doing. Like that would be for line charts and bar charts and so forth, but not for something like a pie chart.
That is correct. So
okay.
So a lot of the charts depend upon being on a frame, on a Cartesian frame, but some of the charts don't. Like pie charts, for example, they don't reference coordinate or axis coordinates, I guess,
Makes
or
sense.
maps or things like
maps
that.
too, right? Of course.
You wouldn't have a Cartesian frame for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So now if I come back here and refresh my page, and I save first, then now I have an x and a y axis.
Okay. So that was done by by adding Cartesian.
That's done by adding Cartesian.
Okay.
Okay. And this is an empty axis because it doesn't have any data.
Yep.
So it just it doesn't have anything on the x-axis, and it just figures, oh, maybe a default for the y-axis would be from 0 to 10. But this is going to change as soon as you add some data.
Okay.
So now let's add the next little thing. Let's say I want to add a line chart, and I just add a line chart by appending another visualization into my container, and I can pass the data in. So let's say that's my data.
Okay.
Okay. I just pass it as an array, and there's different formats of data that you can pass in, and that's explained. There's a whole section on supported formats for data and the documentation. But this is the simplest way, the simplest format.
Right, just to type it in, essentially.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Just an array of numbers. That's okay. Now if I come here and render, now I have my chart.
Okay, good. 2, 4, 6, 8. I see it. Looks right.
Exactly. And let me just remove the border now that we have something to look at. We don't need the border anymore.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the basic chart. If you notice now on the x-axis we have 0, 1, 2, and 3, and that corresponds to the indices of the data points, right? So this is the index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, and this is index 3.
Okay.
Usually you don't want to chart something like that. You want to have some sort of value in the x-axis.
Yeah.
And this depends a lot on the type of chart and the different things. But let's say I want to name those values. I want to have some categories or some labels for those x-axis points, I guess.
Yeah.
So the way I do that is I create categories, and I create an array of categories which correspond to the indices of the data. So for that, I can do x-axis categories, and this is just an array of labels, basically, for each of the categories, and those apply to all the visualizations. That applies to the whole x-axis, right? So I can do this is A, B, C, and D, for example.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if I render this,
okay,
now I have my categories.
Nice. All right.
2, 3, 4. Okay. And so now let's say I want to add something else to my visualization. I want to add, for example, a column chart. And to add a column chart, basically I just add another visualization, add another layer to my visualization, and I can say column, and I can put another set of values, 5, 4, 3, 2. It's could be a different data set, could be the same data set, depends on on your needs. And now, if I refresh my page, now I have a column chart.
Nice. You're just layering on top, within that same chart object, then, the contoured chart object, you're layering other stuff on top of it.
That is correct, yes.
But it looks like, it's hard to tell a little bit, but it looks like maybe the column chart is on top of the line chart. Is there a way to flip it?
Yep. So let's first use different colors.
Yeah.
We can't see anything different.
That's why it's hard to tell.
That's why it's hard.
Okay. Yeah.
But so if I wanted to change the color for the column, for example, I can say series 1, because it's the first series in the visualization, column, and I can specify a color.
Okay, got it.
So I'm just saying the series 1 columns, fill them with red and put a stroke red, put a red border.
Okay, got it. So fill and stroke with red, so make the whole thing red.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could put like a different color in here, like I put blue, and then I would have like a blue outline in here. Right?
Okay.
Okay, but so now I have a color. Now I can see that indeed the line chart is underneath the column chart.
Yeah.
And this is because of the way I added the visualizations. Everything is rendered. Each visualization gets a layer, and they are rendered in the order that you add them to the container. So basically, if I want to add I want to render the line on top of the column, I just add them afterwards. I just put the line after the column.
Okay.
And now, if I refresh that, now my line is in front of the column chart.
Got it. So it just depends on what order you put things in, depending on what is stacked on top of it, essentially.
Exactly.
Layers.
That is exactly correct.
Okay.
Okay. And the same kind of thing happens with tooltips and with legends and with all those different things. So, for example, if I want to add a tooltip, then I just add the tooltip visualization.
And do you need to do that on after too? Does that need to be the last thing, or does it not matter for tooltips?
It doesn't matter that much for tooltips, but sometimes if you add things that react to each other, the things that react, like the sensors of the chart, like it's better to have them on top of things and not have, for example, column charts block the sensor, basically.
Makes sense. I understand. Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
So we tend to add them on top of each other. Okay. So now if I refresh this and I come here, I get a.
So it says Series 1 D8. And is there something similar now for the columns, or is that now only for the markers on the line chart?
Right now it's only for the markers on the line chart because of the data set. So I have to pass the data set that I want to render on the tooltips. Mm-hmm. And if I don't pass any data set, it just takes the latest. So
Got it.
It's taking that the data set. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you notice that there's a name for the series, and right now it's Series 1, and just whatever name I just decided to. It's just a default name for now, but I can control that, of course, and I can say if I change my format of the data set, then I can specify something like the name of the series, right? So I can pass an array of objects or an array of series, and then I can name my series, my Series 1, and now my data has to be inside here. Okay, and this is another format to pass data in. Right? And now if I refresh my data,
so the
name of the series is my Series 1 now.
Got it. Okay.
So that's how you create basic Fourier contour charts, and with this basic framework, basically you can start extending and start creating your own visualizations and kind of have a very clean way of creating your charts without having to have a lot of configuration and a lot of strange objects and strange code intermixed with the configuration.
Right? Nice. It looks very clean to me, and it was helpful to kind of go through that example. I like the sort of the structure of it. It's just like whatever, it looks like 10 lines or something like that to create, fairly complex chart with a couple of different visualizations and things. I have a few questions, just add-ons, if that's okay. I was thinking about, like, one thing I wonder about is, like, in this example, you use A, B, C, D as for the categories for the x-axis. What if I had something that was numbers? Like, can it handle data in there as well, or how would I put in, like, say, a time series or something?
Right. So there's different types of x-axis that we kind of figure out into Contour.
Yeah.
And there's basically three types. One is the category axis, which is what you usually use for a bar chart, for example.
Yeah.
So each bar or each column, rather, it corresponds to one category, and that category has a name.
Yeah.
This is what we did here. But you can also do linear axis, which means the x-axis corresponds to a number. Also, it's exactly the same as the y-axis.
Yeah.
So, for example, a scatter plot would behave that way.
Right. That's right.
Because they're just like different numbers, and you're just trying to correlate one axis to the other, right? Mm-hmm. And for example, and then the next axis type would be the time series, which you can put like any date in it, and it will behave as in it would know that there are dates, and it would try to figure out like the different formats to render the label in, for example, and the different things that are particular to dates, right, or to time, for example.
Okay.
And so in here I just created a category axis, but if for example column visualizations don't work well with non-categorical axis, right? Because they don't see it. If I say type linear here, I can force it to be a linear axis, and now my line chart if you notice, the 0 it starts at the axis.
Oh, interesting. And it moved everything over to, actually, that was my next question. I was wondering about how to line things up so that if you wanted it to start at 0 on the y-axis, you could do it. So you need to do that by using linear?
That's a linear axis, because if this were a category axis,
yeah,
basically what it's telling is like, from the axis to the middle of, like the middle point between 0 and 1, that's the group, or that's the range for that category.
So probably a lot of times you want to use linear for line charts, and then using, like for categorical data, like bars and column charts, you'll use categories.
Categories, exactly.
Okay.
That's basically the intention. And for example, for area charts also you get, if I change this to area chart, area charts in general, they also tend to be linear axis, so automatically it selects a linear axis.
Got it. Even though you didn't define it that time, it set it up that way anyway, because it expects for area charts to be set up.
Exactly.
Okay, last question, and then we can wrap up. Unless you, is that okay? Okay. So last question is, how would we do legends?
Okay, so there's the same types of things. I can add just legends.
Okay.
And then that automatically puts a legend on my visualization. Okay. Now I can control the way this legend looks and the position of this legend also. So, for example, if I wanted to change the position of this legend and I wanted to have it be vertically aligned to the top and horizontally aligned to the left, for example.
Yeah.
Now that's going to show up here.
Okay, nice.
And through CSS, I can control the look and feel of this. I can remove the border, for example, if I don't want the border, let's say.
That makes sense. Because again, this is about styling, so that's all in the CSS. It's not in the JavaScript.
That is correct, exactly. Okay. So styling is in CSS, positioning is in JavaScript.
Makes sense.
So now I can remove the border just through CSS.
Okay.
And that's the basic legend that comes with Contour. You of course can extend it anywhere you want, and you can create some much more sophisticated legends also.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
I mean, thanks a lot. And I guess for next steps, if people wanted to get into this, they just go to Forio.com/contour and they can find these examples and other things available.
That is correct. Yeah.
All right.
And thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.